Imagine, for a moment, that when you wake up tomorrow, you are no longer the same person you always believed yourself to be. Your name, your memories, your past, all still there, but something deep inside of you has changed forever. It's as if the old version of you has died, and in its place, someone completely new has been born, someone awakened. But here's the truth most people are too afraid to say out loud. The death we're talking about is not the death of the body, but the death of the ego. And when the ego dies, something extraordinary happens. You discover that you were never trapped in a single life, but connected to infinite realities, to multiple timelines that exist right now. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to leap from a limited, ordinary life into one full of abundance, love, and purpose? It's not luck, it's conscious choice. It's the result of having the courage to walk through the portal of ego death. And if you are here, right now, listening to these words, it is not a coincidence. It means you are already prepared to receive truths that most people are not yet ready to face. This video is not for everyone. It's for you, the one who feels that something greater is awakening inside, and who seeks to understand how to shift between parallel realities through awakening. So I invite you to stay with me until the very end of this video, because what I'm about to reveal could completely change the way you see life, death, and yourself. If this message resonates with you, make sure to subscribe, turn on the bell, and share this with someone who is also awakening. You are part of the rare few who are ready to see beyond the veil. And here, you will never walk this path alone. The ego is like a mask we've been wearing since birth. It gives us an identity, a name, a story, but it also traps us. The great illusion is believing that we are this mask, when in truth, it is nothing more than a temporary role. The ego fears its own death because it survives through control. It needs you to believe that without it, you are nothing. That's why it creates fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of being judged, fear of losing everything you've built. This is the oldest trick of the ego, convincing you that letting go of it means actual death. But here's the revelation. When the ego dissolves, it's not you who disappears. On the contrary, it's in that moment that you finally discover who you really are. Pure consciousness reveals itself, beyond time, beyond matter. It's like stepping out of a dark room and realizing the whole world has always been waiting for you on the outside. The death of the ego is not the end. It's the very first step into a freedom most people will never experience. When we talk about spiritual death, many people mistake it for something dark or negative, but in truth, it's the exact opposite. To die spiritually is to be reborn into the truth of who you are. It means allowing old patterns, limiting beliefs, and false identities to dissolve, so that the essence of your consciousness can shine without distortion. This process can feel intense, because the ego screams when it realizes it's losing ground. You may feel confusion, emptiness, or even as if you're losing control. But in reality, you're not losing anything. You're being set free. Spiritual death is like tearing down a house built on sand so you can rebuild it on solid ground. It is the choice to no longer live imprisoned by illusions, but to align yourself with your true nature. And here's the crucial point. Spiritual death is not a one-time event. It's a continuous process. Every time you let go of an old identity, you die a little more to the false and are reborn a little more to the real. This is the cycle that opens the way to true spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening doesn't happen all at once. It comes in waves, in signs that slowly begin to show up in your life. Recognizing these symptoms is essential, because they reveal that your consciousness is expanding beyond the limits of the ego. First, you may begin to sense that time is no longer linear but elastic, as if minutes could stretch into hours or vanish in seconds. Second, You feel a natural detachment. Things, people, and situations that once seemed indispensable start to lose their importance. Third, an almost irresistible inner calling emerges, pushing you to search for deeper answers about who you truly are and what your real purpose is. And finally, your perception of reality begins to shift. Colors appear more vivid, coincidences become more frequent, and mysterious synchronicities seem to guide your path. Often, these symptoms come with a strange side effect, a sense that you no longer belong to the same life or the same game you once played. This discomfort is a clear sign that something within you is awakening. The most important thing to understand is that these symptoms are not proof that you are losing your mind. They are evidence that you are finally finding the truth. Consciousness is expanding, and with it, the possibility of accessing new realities. One of the most challenging moments of awakening is what many describe as the void. It's that phase where the old you no longer exists, yet the new you has not fully emerged. It feels like being suspended between worlds. In this stage, you may feel as if you've lost all direction, as though nothing makes sense anymore. Relationships, goals, old dreams. Everything seems to dissolve before your eyes. It's uncharted territory, and this is why the ego panics, desperately trying to convince you to go back to who you once were. But this void is not a punishment. In truth, it is a spiritual womb, a sacred space where new possibilities are being conceived. It is like the silence before music, or fertile soil waiting for a seed. The more you resist it, the more painful the process becomes. But when you surrender and trust, you discover that the void is not absence, it is pure presence. And within this space, your consciousness gathers the strength to leap into a new timeline, an expanded version of your existence. Quantum physics has revealed one of the most fascinating discoveries of the modern era. Reality is not fixed, but a field of infinite possibilities. Every choice, every thought, and every intention influences how those possibilities collapse into a concrete experience. When we look at spiritual awakening through this lens, we understand that ego death creates the space to access these multiple realities. Without the filters of the limited mind, you begin to see that the universe is not something outside of you. It is something that responds directly to your inner vibration. It's as if every thought were a seed planted into the quantum field. Some grow into more limited realities, while others blossom into timelines where you experience abundance, purpose, and expansion. The difference lies in the level of consciousness you choose to sustain. The ego insists that there is only one reality, rigid and unchangeable. But both quantum physics and spiritual traditions converge on the same truth. There are countless realities, and you can move between them consciously. When the ego is in control, it acts like a gatekeeper of old narratives. It keeps you trapped in repetitive patterns, convincing you that your life is limited to a single path. But when the ego dies, that gatekeeper disappears. And suddenly, before you, a corridor of infinite possibilities opens. This is the moment you begin to realize that there isn't just one fixed destiny. There are multiple versions of you, each living in different timelines. Every conscious choice you make becomes a key that unlocks a new door. Imagine, for instance, two timelines. In one, you remain stuck in fear and repetition. In the other, you choose courage and create a life aligned with your purpose. Both exist simultaneously, but only one becomes your lived reality when you choose it with clarity and intention. Ego death, therefore, is not just an internal process of liberation. It is also a practical portal that allows you to leap from one reality to another. It restores to you the power to decide which version of your life you want to inhabit. When the ego dissolves and consciousness expands, you begin to access dimensions of reality that were once hidden. In this state, Many people report encounters with deep memories, spiritual guides, and even other forms of consciousness that seem to exist beyond space and time. These experiences are not products of imagination, but manifestations of a greater field of information, what quantum physics refers to as the unified field. Within it, everything that has ever been and everything that could ever be exists simultaneously. First, memories of past or parallel lives may surface, showing you that your journey is far greater than this current incarnation. Second, presences may appear in the form of guides, energies, beings, or archetypes that bring clarity and direction. And finally, there may be the realization that your consciousness is connected to something collective, a greater intelligence that flows through all forms of life. These encounters expand your sense of identity. You are no longer just you, but a part of a living network of interconnected consciousnesses. Every thought, every emotion, and every decision you make does not only shape your present, it also determines the timeline you project yourself into for the future. When you awaken, you realize that you are constantly planting seeds that define which reality you will inhabit. If you choose to live in fear, you reinforce timelines where limitations repeat themselves. If you choose to live in love and consciousness, you open portals to more expansive realities, filled with purpose and abundance. It's like programming a spiritual GPS. Your daily choices set the route your consciousness will follow. There is no such thing as neutrality. Even not choosing is still a choice. This is the true impact of ego death. It reveals that you are responsible for everything you create, both now and beyond. Your life is no longer a predetermined script, but a work in constant creation, guided by the choices you make at every moment. Most people fear death because they associate the end with darkness, loss, and emptiness. Yet, when we speak of the death of the ego, we discover that the end does not exist. What we call the end is, in truth, a passage, a portal into a new form of existence. When the ego ceases to rule, you do not disappear, you are revealed. Consciousness expands and begins to access dimensions of life that were once hidden. At this point, we come to understand the death of the ego is never the conclusion of something, but the beginning of everything. It is like awakening from a deep dream and finally remembering who you truly are. Life ceases to be a sequence of automatic repetitions and becomes a conscious creation, where you choose, in every moment, which reality you wish to live. This is the true awakening, realizing that there is no end, only continuous transformations. Each death of the ego opens space for a new birth, and each new birth brings you closer to your infinite essence. Now, I invite you to reflect and take part in this process. Write in the comments the mantra, "I choose to be reborn in my true essence." By doing so, you anchor this energy within your field and strengthen your decision to live awakened.